Imagine standing on the edge of a runway, looking up at a barrier, 10, 15, 20 feet in the air. With nothing more than a piece of fiberglass that has the diameter of a ping pong ball, you're going to launch yourself up and over that bar. Scared? Exhilarated? You'd be justified in feeling either, or both. Welcome to the world of pole vaulting, a sport where defying gravity is the name of the game. Now, the toughest and most exhilarating component of the vault is reaching the point of full inversion, where your feet are directly above your head. While dizzying, inversion can provide a unique perspective and allow us to see the world in ways different from what we might originally anticipate. Take this image, for example. What does it appear to be? At first glance, a magician, and a sinister one at that. But if we invert the image, just like that, a rabbit appears out of the hat. Now, we didn't change the image, but the way that we viewed it and subsequently thought about it did. How we see our world shapes how we think about it. Inversion, whether in pole vaulting or life, can teach us much and allow us to appreciate the beautiful complexities of the world in which we live. So in that spirit of inversion, I'm here to tell you today to keep your eyes off the prize. Resist the desire to invent, and don't count the hours you log on a project. Now stay with me here. I know this is likely the last thing you expected to hear at a TEDx conference, but I hope it allows you to broaden your perspectives and encourages you to engage critically with everything you might hear. Let the inversion begin. Now, the first rule of pole vaulting, other than hold on to the pole all the way to the top, is to never look at the barrier you're required to clear, the crossbar. Why? Because then the focus becomes on the end goal and not all of the little actions leading up to it that you have control over. The bar's not going anywhere. Why obsess about it? It's all the little things, the run-up approach, leaving the ground at takeoff, that warrant appreciation and attention. Now, there are crossbars, barriers that we need to clear all around us, and it can be easy to fixate on that end goal and lose sight of all the things that make achieving worthwhile goals possible. But luckily for us, there are groups that don't fall into this trap, and one of the best organizations that I've ever had a chance of witnessing with this is led by a group of individuals in which no one has yet received a high school diploma. I'm, of course, talking about the Fill the Dome group. Since 2007, Fill the Dome has raised over 450 tons of food and $350,000 for those in need in the Fargo Moorhead area and across North Dakota and western Minnesota. Now, it could be easy to look at such a successful group and think that the focus, the end goal, the mission was results. But I can tell you, having had the honor of serving as advisor of this group, nothing is farther from the truth. It's the people, whether the student leaders who cast aside high school rivalries to work together as a team, or the individuals affected by the food, both those giving and receiving. Now, I'll never forget being on the floor of the Fargo Dome when a young boy approached me and handed me all of the pudding packs that he had been collecting. He said that he didn't believe that any kid should have to go without dessert. You can't measure that in pounds or dollars. Every day, every meeting, connecting on a personal level is the goal. Success isn't measured in pounds or dollars, but unity in the strength of adversity, pride and strength in our community, and collaboration in future endeavors. Now, the food collected at Fill the Dome lasts less than a year, but the bonds that are forged can last a lifetime. Think of it this way. What would happen if the focus of Fill the Dome was on the food, the end goal, the crossbar? Would the impact end as soon as the last can of soup leaves the shelves of the food pantry? Perhaps. But when the focus is on people and purpose, the end of the food drive is just the beginning. The real success of Fill the Dome cannot be quantified until the student leaders can see just how strong the relationships they've forged are. The food, the money. The crossbar to those outside of the organization is nothing more than a powerful byproduct. Now, we all have something to learn from the Fill the Dome model. Whether at school, at work, at home, or in our community, the blind pursuit of goals can prevent us from meaningfully engaging in our world and leave us staring at a crossbar, and can prevent us from engaging with all of the individuals that we come into contact with along the way. Maybe we need to invert our understanding of what setting a meaningful goal looks like. So not only does all the things leading up to clearing the crossbar matter, how one clears the crossbar deserves some attention. Now, within the sport of pole vaulting, there's generally one agreed upon way in which a vaulter should technically approach the event, utilizing a high plant into a full inversion with a half-turn dismount at the top. Now, with a sport as complex as pole vaulting, and with so many individuals using a similar technique, it can be easy to want to invent a new way of doing things to gain a competitive advantage. Now, while each vaulter must innovate and use their strengths and skills to modify their technique, attempting to recreate the wheel, or in this case the vault, can have some negative consequences. Maximization, improving and expanding impact, does not require the creation of something new. Simply supporting a culture of innovation isn't enough. And worse yet, when we place competitive invention, placing invention over impact, we can prevent individuals in society from achieving its goals, substituting substance for style and ego. Now, it's not hard to find some negative effects of this competitive invention. The United States has seen an explosion in the number of nonprofit organizations. And with charities and organizations competing with one another for a very similar set of resources, simply adding one more organization to an existing problem does not guarantee that that problem will be resolved. Put another way, does simply adding one more instrument to an ensemble guarantee a better sound or fix a problem that was already in existence? Experts in almost all fields of study have witnessed and articulated the dangers of placing quantity over quality. And with nearly 2 million nonprofits in the United States, this competitive invention is something that we need to think critically about. Going back to my favorite nonprofit, what would happen if the student leaders decided to do something different every year in place of fill the dome? Could a new impact be established? Absolutely. But would the community lose a huge piece of its identity and a lasting testament to the power of youth? Unfortunately. How can we balance this recognition that Fill the Dome is a recent invention with an appreciation that perpetuating this competitively inventive mindset can have a dark side that we don't think about? How can we maximize with purpose? Now, in a world that idealizes startups, new apps, and charter schools, it can be easy to forget about all the things that make innovation possible. How can we improve the things that we come into contact with every day, from our clubs at school to the very structure of our government? Now, the world needs invention, but it's possible to improve our communities without putting founder or creator on our resume. Now, this is a delicate balance that must be struck, innovating the existing without stifling invention. But maybe we need to stop asking prospective college students about what they're going to do when they get on campus and how the best thing they can do right away is start a new club. Why not improve an existing one? Let's focus on strategies that allow us to maximize, to raise the bar, instead of solely focusing and celebrating new ways of clearing the same height. And speaking of raising the bar, success does not happen overnight. It takes work. But there's more to it than simply logging hours. Now, I think back to the 10,000-hour rule, well known by Malcolm Gladwell, saying that you need to invest about 10,000 hours into something to become an expert. Now, contrary to that, I think of an old adage I learned early in my track and field career. It's not the number of hours you put in, it's what you put into the hours. The best aren't those who invest the most time. They train smart, specific, and with purpose. They value quality over quantity. Now, you see, the crossbar isn't going to adjust itself to the amount of time you've spent at practice. But the impact of that practice is witnessed every time a vaulter gracefully soars over the bar. Now, this last point is especially relevant to me as I am set to begin my teaching career this fall. I couldn't be more excited to be serving and working on the Pine Ridge Reservation as a core member with Teach for America, an organization dedicated to closing the achievement gap in schools that have been historically disadvantaged. Where a student goes to school shouldn't dictate the quality of their education. Now, while I couldn't be more excited to be both a teacher and a learner in this new culture, there's been no shortage of questions and critics. Having received a degree in education, utilizing the traditional method of teacher preparation, many have asked me how I can enter the classroom with colleagues who haven't put in their time in traditional teacher preparation. Now, only 7% of Teach for America core members received an undergraduate degree in education in 2013. And typical training for Teach for America lasts about 6 to 8 weeks in the summer leading up to entering the classroom. Now, this is something that I've thought a lot about and sought to learn more. Now, there's some interesting research that both confirms and questions the effectiveness of Teach for America's teachers. But some recent scholarship out of the Department of Education and the American Institutes for Research suggests that Teach for America teachers can teach as well, and in some instances better than, classically trained educators. Now, I am not here to say Teach for America is the solution to our nation's educational challenges. Far from it. But I will say the fact that compelling evidence exists on both sides of this debate tells us something profound. Maybe we need to look past the number of hours invested to all the variables that can contribute to success. Now, Teach for America isn't the only organization caught up in this hours-long debate. High school students are asked to track the number of hours invested for scholarships. And one of the first questions that comes up when people discuss work is the length of time in which one has been working. Why does it have to be this way? Papers aren't graded in school based on the number of hours invested, which I can tell you, having just graduated college, can add up quickly when you're writing your paper and texting your friend while surfing the internet and watching Netflix, all while sending a Snapchat to a friend. How can we change the conversation to focus on the passion, the purpose of our work? Fill the Dome proves this year in and year out. You don't need a degree in event planning, let alone a high school diploma, to execute one of the most successful food drives in the country. So let's invert. Let's challenge assumptions that equate raw experience with expertise. Or as one of my favorite coaches used to say in high school, practice does not make perfect, but perfect practice can make perfect. Now, today I've asked you to invert your thinking, which I realize can be both challenging and frustrating, but I hope rewarding and eye-opening. Now, we're forced to confront, interact with information every second of every day. And while few would question the value of relationships, maximization, and quality, how does that allow us to gain a more complicated and beautiful recognition of the world in which we live? Now, few people, I'm sure, expected to see those messages on this board walking in today. But ask yourself, what would you have thought if I would have stood up here and only talked about relationships, maximization, and quality? A worthwhile message, sure, but how does that develop an appreciation for and recognition of the beautiful complexities of the world in which we live? Inversion, seeking additional perspectives and seeking first to understand, then be understood, can give us a more nuanced and holistic appreciation of our world. Inversion allows us to see that the world can be far more complex, and in some instances, more simple than we initially think. So my challenge to you is to be a pole vaulter. Invert your world and appreciate its beauty from all angles. It's quite the view. Thank you.